Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for our webinar. We very much appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and listen to us. We hope we will both inform and entertain this afternoon. We've got an interesting story to share with you. It's a story that's quite close to our, well, not quite, very close to our hearts, because everyone on this webinar was very deeply involved in the process. And it proved to us just what the power of technology can be in the middle of, what was obviously and continues to be a terrible crisis taking place, across the world. And what we want to do today is talk about some of the approaches that we collectively put together. And by we, it's a big tent. There was an agency response, a client response, and a platform partner response, all working together to produce a solution, in some of the most extreme circumstances. And no doubt, each one of you out there will have your own story to tell on that front. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to dive straight in, get into some introductions. We want to talk you through I think there's an agenda. I might as well show you the agenda. That's probably the best thing. Let me share my screen. So that, okay. Yeah. So this is obviously a partnership, very much a partnership between 15below, who our client, who I'll allow Natalie, who's about to speak, to give a description of 15below's circumstances. They are, having worked with them, as a technology partner, they are a remarkable organisation who have really been at the right in the eye of the hurricane when it comes to the pandemic response. And I think you'll get a feel for that as Natalie speaks. We're also collectively here because of Acquia and the tools that they supply and their unique model of open source combined with proprietary and enterprise software, bringing something together at a price point for mid-market, which, let's face it, was hard to achieve until recent times. So I think I'm quite open in saying that Acquia have been transformational in the work that we've been doing, and we're Coherence. So let me go on to here we go. Natalie, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Natalie McLeod. I'm the head of marketing at 15below.
And there's myself, there's my mugshot. I'm Julian Tedstone, Managing Director for Coherence. And then we've got Darren.
Hi everyone, Darren Coomber. I'm Production Director at Coherence Digital. Nice to see you all, or not.
And we all kind of worked together very closely. This was pretty much during March last year, as things took a hard left for the world, really. And this is our story. So I'm going to start by just handing over to Natalie, who's, well, no, sorry, we've got an agenda. So firstly, we're going to look at the challenges that we're facing 15below as a business. Natalie will be able to fill that in. And then our approach and some of the technology and design solutions that we put in place to address those, and then the results that were coming out of that. And so that's the kind of the business, the commercial overview. But we also really want to show you the meat and potatoes of what drove that change. So after Natalie and I have spoken, Darren is going to give a demo of the technology that's powering this, and just show you what kind of agility that delivers. There is no, of course, webinar without logos, and we hope not to disappoint you today. We have the logos down the side here. So obviously, the solution is very much powered by Drupal, open source technology, mature, very robust, and a solution that has got huge purchase in mid-market and enterprise. Acquia Site Studio, we're going to introduce to you as part of the key to the solution. But as part of the Acquia kind of the Acquia ecosystem, we have access to a whole world of other tools that can help to activate a marketing team in their objectives. So that's enough for me. I'm going to hand over to Natalie to just take us through the 15 below story.
Thank you. Shall I also mention that the session's being recorded and that the slides will be available at the end? We sent round.
That's a very good thing to remind everybody, and thank you very much for bringing that to the host's attention. The host has also now been reminded there is a Q&A button at the base of this, so please do add your questions in to the Q&A at the bottom there. We will do our best to answer those at the top of the session. Thank you, Natalie, for that timely reminder.
Of course. Hi everyone. So yeah, I'm Natalie. As I said, I work for a business called 15 below. The business was founded in 2000, building software to enable airlines to communicate effectively with their passengers, to keep passengers informed throughout their whole journey, and to make the travel process as smooth as possible. Ryanair was our first customer back in 2000, and they're still using the 15 below platform today. So while you may not have heard of the 15 below brand directly, if you've travelled with any of these companies in the last 20 years, it's highly likely that you will have received a mobile boarding pass, an e-ticket, or an SMS or email telling you that your flight has been changed or cancelled. That would have been sent to you by the 15 below platform. Next slide, please, Jules. So at the end of 2019, so coming into the beginning of last year, travel was absolutely booming. The biggest challenge for the industry was figuring out how it was going to meet passenger demands. Traveller numbers were set to double within a matter of years, and everyone was just thinking, how, airports aren't big enough and all of that. But that was the biggest concern. Suddenly, overnight, 90% of flights were grounded as the coronavirus hit. Tens of thousands of people around the world were losing their jobs. Our points of contact all of a sudden were gone, or literally overnight. And because of all these major restructures and so many redundancies, but along with that, millions of flights being cancelled, airlines needed our solution more than ever to be able to keep all these passengers informed. So up until this point, about 70% of our prospect leads were generated by events. We either hosted or attended about 12 events a year around the world, and suddenly these were no longer available to us. So our entire lead generation strategy was basically no longer viable, and we had to pivot really quickly. And we knew that we needed to establish a stronger digital presence, but our website was so old. I think it was about 6 years old, but it hadn't been updated in that time at all, and it was completely inflexible. The only thing that I was able to do was write blog posts, put them on our articles page, and hope that people would see them. Next slide, please. So we had just built a new product, which I would call an MVP. It was a basic solution that we could give to airlines who needed something really quickly, but something quite basic. And it was quite a big deal because, typically it would take a couple of years to get something quite sophisticated in place. But we didn't have any way of promoting it to anyone. Again, I could write a blog post about it, but that was the only thing I could do to our website to draw people's attention to it. So we had a lot of top of the funnel content being generated because that's really all we had the capacity to do. So it meant engagement was low and people just weren't converting. We needed a site that was going to be able to allow us to change our messaging as quickly as it was changing across the industry. So we had been working with Coherence. You can do the next slide, please, Jules. We had been working with Coherence to to build a new website, but along with quite a sophisticated strategy behind it. But our story unfortunately mirrored that of the airlines. We just lost Flybe, they'd just gone bust, and pretty much all of our other customers were on their knees and were asking for a lot of financial support. So it was a time where our budgets were really tight and our teams were depleting. So I had to call on Coherence really to see how they could help us. Time was of the essence. Do you want to talk through that bit, Jules?
Yeah, I mean, it was the early engagement that we had with 15below, which was obviously pre-crisis, was really about helping them to position the organization as a passenger experience brand, a brand that was focused on making the flying experience, pre, during, and post, as pleasurable and as seamless as possible. And that was a brief that was around repositioning from a kind of a technical product to one that was much more kind of customer focused. And Natalie and the team were just absolutely brilliant and engaged in that process. And we had so much collateral, so much content for a new messaging strategy that would attack that point. And then, of course, COVID came along, and then suddenly overnight, all bets were off. It was not around necessarily passenger experience in the same way. Passenger experience was still vitally important, but this was now around industry survival, around business resilience, around the ability to continue to serve passengers, to accept to current standards. And what the website's role in that was that a number of different messaging approaches needed to be tried at speed. We didn't have time to workshop any of that. We didn't have time to user test any of that messaging, or get board approval against it. What Natalie and her team were after was a method of very, very quickly getting messaging up. I mean, quickly, within minutes, and then changing that messaging, as rapidly as events moved on. So we specialize at Coherence in a suite of technologies. We do one thing. We're very, very focused on that, and that's working with Drupal. We build design systems in Drupal that take a brand and encapsulate that brand within a design system. And then we use a technology called Site Studio, which is an Acquia technology, which allows those design systems to become reusable within within the CMS environment by non-technical editors. So it's a low-code solution. And what that means is that a team of designers can very quickly take the brand, take the essence of the brand, build it into a Drupal web platform, deploy that, and then it means that the content-focused personnel, like people like Natalie and her team, can get very, very quick access to the CMS, and then start building out that content, and also changing it on the fly as the messaging needs to change. So this is what we were tasked with doing. Natalie came to me and said, "Listen, we can't continue with the current kind of content design process. We've got to pivot, and I desperately need a website that I can communicate through." So we took that on board, and we within 10 days we reverse engineered the brand into Drupal, created a design system with reusable components, and launched that. Natalie did an amazing job of getting the content population in place, because there is 15below have got some incredible thought leadership, case studies, all of that really valuable stuff. Just no way to flexibly promote that stuff and to contextualize it. So within 10 days, we collectively, I think it was 10 working days. I think we took the weekend off, didn't we? Yeah, within 10 working days. Yeah, I think there was a dip over the weekend. You know, within 10 days, we had a site up ready, live, replacing the existing site that enabled Natalie to continue with the things that were really essential to the communication needs of the business. And I think, Natalie, there's some examples here of the work that you did.
Yeah, so within a few weeks of the site being live, we had designed, built and run 2 of our most successful campaigns that we'd ever run. So the first one, which is on the next slide, Julian, was to promote the product that I mentioned earlier, the MVP, which was a basic solution that airlines could get in place really quickly. Within 3 months, we'd had 14 new inquiries and 2 new customers had come online. So up until this point, the average sales cycle for us was between 18 months and 2 years. It's quite a complicated solution that we have to offer. We have a lot of objectives and needs to meet, and it's not a quick process in general. So to get 2 new customers online that quickly at a time when we were losing revenue because customers still needed our solution but couldn't afford to pay us, that was huge. I think it's also worth bearing in mind or mentioning that I know these numbers might seem really low if you work on a B2C brand, but when you have a really low volume but high value business model, 2 new customers, we've got 54 customers at the moment. So 2 in 3 months is massive. The second campaign was, it was to get our best practice advice out to our network. So pre-departure communications prior to this point would typically have been messaging around, do you need extra leg room? Do you need more baggage allowance? Have you booked your tours? Do you need to hire a car? That sort of thing. So it was an airline's opportunity to upsell and generate additional revenue through ancillary sales. We were very conscious, however, that this was a really big opportunity for airlines to use this communication instead to avoid the chaos in the airports that we knew was going to happen. So I don't know if you remember the images from Heathrow in the summer when there were huge queues of passengers snaking around departures because they hadn't completed a form that they didn't know they needed to fill out. Had airlines been able to send it to passengers before they left home, that the risk associated with all of those people, in 2 close quarters would have been avoided. And also, that sort of thing is really costly for airlines. All that staff interaction, the negative press, airlines just don't need it. So to be able to advise airlines that we could help send passengers this form before they got to the airport was a really big opportunity. Before we got this new website, because we had like heavy documents and guidance documents to send out, we probably would have had, they were big files, we probably would have had to have sent them via WeTransfer through Outlook before. Marketing would have had almost no control over the format. We certainly wouldn't have been able to track any performance. So to be able to build this landing page in a matter of minutes, dragging in all of the elements that we needed to be able to host those documents in the CMS and to integrate it with our automation platform, to be able to pull in this form that you can see here, it meant that we just had complete control over it. We could optimize the landing page, and we could see the results coming in real time. So we got another 3 opportunities through this campaign as well. So it was really big for us. Next slide, please. Thank you. So basically, that's our story. We went from winning to losing probably overnight and back to winning again really in 10 days. And I think that without the sophistication of the technology and the expertise of Coherence, I think that the story for 15below would be totally different now. I'm very grateful.
Well, and it's been absolutely amazing working with 15below, because you get an understanding of just how integral they are to the airline industry, and just what the impact is if those communications break down. You know, at that point the messaging, you know, was just absolutely kind of crucial. And I think you know, one of the things, I mean, I've worked with Drupal now for about 8 years in various guises, running Drupal teams. And you know, one of the criticisms that you used to get about Drupal was that it wasn't designed with marketers in mind. It was an engineering product for engineers, and it does have you know, great engineering credentials. You know, my customers, our customers, they've always been on the marketing side. So for us, making sure that there are tools in place that make Drupal a absolutely killer marketing communication machine are essential. And the thing for us that that bridges that gap is Acquia Site Studio, which Darren is going to show you in a moment, which really it helps us to build very flexible websites that can evolve very quickly, without developer intervention, where you can afford to, you know, experiment with your messaging, be playful, throw things away if they don't work, or, you know, amplify things if they do work, without having a huge development overhead. And getting Site Studio in there was really crucial for us, and it also meant that we could distribute the burden of content population, which, as you know, is you know, can be a really slowing factor in the rollout of any website, to the migration of content. But because this is a low-code solution, there is a much wider community of people that can get involved. Basically, anybody who's familiar with using Facebook can use this system and start you know, populating content. So the thing that we're after, you know, with this technology is firstly the speed that it gives us, the ability to set up you know, initially a website very quickly, but then once that website is set up, you know, doesn't have concrete poured around it and it becomes, you know, petrified. It's a living, breathing website that can evolve its user journeys, evolve its layouts, you know, evolve its messaging. Gives us the ability to run a number of different types of campaigns. So the ability to set up campaign pages, an A/B test campaign pages, you know, it can be done at speed, and it's certainly, that's something that, you know, those campaigns that Natalie just showed you, you know, they didn't touch us as an agency. That was all done, you know, through Natalie's own team, and you know, we get to hear about it, you know, later on. It's like, oh wow, Natalie, that's amazing that it's worked out like that. We didn't build those. So, and the other thing is that you get through that process into the habit of agile marketing. So that's learning and optimizing based on the data that you're getting back from your campaigns. So you can run 2-week or 3-week cycle, whatever makes sense to your business. You can run reliable campaign cycles and learn iteratively from those campaigns, you know, without burning, you know, thousands of pounds, or, you know, on each iteration. So that's kind of what the strategy kind of how it pivoted, and how the technology helped us to move with that. Oops, I've gone the wrong way. Right, and then just to give us a slightly wider picture, because I mean, what Natalie has spoken to today is a you know, a B2B business with, you know, a very sophisticated set of messaging to an educated, you know, highly aware audience. So that's one type of business. But we use the same or a similar techniques to power very different types of businesses. So, for example, we use the same kind of Drupal site studio approach with multi-site approaches to run, multi-market, multi-brand web estates for consumer health giants. So we're currently replatforming something like 500 websites for a international consumer health brand. And there's about 20 different brands, all running off a single design system, all running off Drupal, all managed off a single system, but with the design system built into the configuration, so that we can roll that out where we've got minimal technical debt, because we've only got one technical platform, but we can reach a number of different brands and a number of different markets. And how that normally works is, we will take a brand, we'll take the visual design elements. Out of that, we'll create a design system that we know is going to be flexible, is configurable, and I think Darren will be able to give you a feel for what that looks like in the meantime. A lot of what we do is making either single sites or multi-sites, so that might be running multiple brands or brands across multiple markets. And then, as Natty says, there's that integration point, and this is where Drupal's strength as underneath the hood as a real piece of engineering really steps up, because it means that we can integrate very well into market activation, localization processes, CRM, CDP, e-commerce, personalization, all of those things plug really nicely into Drupal, which ultimately means you get to talk to your audience in the way and at the time, and in the place and on the channel that you want to be able to talk to them. Anyway, that's probably enough of me for the moment. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Darren. He's going to take you through just a couple of use cases. And then there'll be an opportunity. Please do reach for the Q&A button and start logging some questions there. We'll answer those at the top of the session. Okay, just handing over to you, Daz.
Thanks, Jules. Okay, let me just get into the right screen. Okay, cool. Can everybody see a CMS in front of them? Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, we're off to a good start then. Okay, yeah. So this is typical Drupal layout. You're not, for anyone here who's familiar with Drupal already, you're not looking at anything that's really different in any way, shape, or form. Where the real kind of magic, I suppose, comes into is once you start to create pages, and that's what we're going to do now. So, part of the challenge that we had when we were trying to create a website in sort of 10 days is first of all understanding what the requirements are and looking at the patterns. And as Jules said, what we do is we take those patterns and requirements and we try to turn them into a series of components. And what you can see in this left-hand column here is all of those components. Now, what we do is if I just toggle this, you can see where we've got these kind of thumbnails here. This is basically the exercise we would have gone through with 15 below, whereby we understand what kind of things they might want to put onto a page and then build out a number of these to allow them to do that. And that's really what we're going to do now. So if I just take some of these, so we've got, I'm just going to pop these on and see what happens basically. So if we put these on here now, there's a number of different components. The great things you'll see is when I hit save on this, they are effectively already loaded up with things like placeholder imagery and text. So, from a marketer's perspective, you don't need to waste time so much going out and sort of, scamping out what you want something to look like, handing it across to a designer, developers getting involved, etc., etc. What you can do is you can just effectively throw the components onto a page, have a look at it and see if it looks like the kind of layout you're happy with before you actually start going in and editing your content and creating your page. So if we just take, once you've got your content into the actual page and you're happy with the kind of layout and how it looks and feels, I think what I'm going to do is just make a change on this because I don't like this grey box here separating my content. So I'm just going to go back in and now we're going to go back into the CMS and edit that. Because of the drag and drop nature, it's as simple as you can literally just drag one thing above the other and go from there. Once you've done that, there's two different ways that you can actually edit the content. So you can edit it in the normal traditional way you would with, quite a number of CMSs, whereas you can go into the actual component form. Once you start to look at the component form, what you can then do is if I just go in and I can just change up some of these images. Let's just have a look now. So I click on Home Hero, and what I can do is just go in. So I've added in my image, which you can see there. And if I go in and I just change up the height of it, I've got my text where it needs to be. And now what I can do is just go and click on this. And I'll just click on that. Sorry, excuse me, just bear with me 2 moments, please. Sorry, everyone. Apologies for this. What's out? No, it's out. Stay outside that, so be it. Apologies, everyone. Sorry about that.
That was so cute.
Yeah, you will say
so
that
cute.
5 times a day to you, Natalie, I can tell you. Right, so we just take that and we put in the actual heading now. Sorry, trying my best not to be thrown off by it all. And hit apply. And we go back and we look at the front end now. And just click on that. There you go. You can see now we're starting to work with the content now. So we've loaded in a new image. We've got a new H1 for the page. So that's one way you can go and edit the content. There's an alternative way that you can use here, and this is probably much more useful for content editors, and that you can use this front-end editing tool. And quite simply, all you need to do is go in and edit the content from the front end, as the name suggests. So once you toggle into a component, you can see now exactly what you're looking at from a content form point of view. So where we've got this is a H2 heading, what we can do is we can start to copy and paste, and you'll start to see how quickly this can come together. So we'll just take that out of there. We've got our first card here, so we're going to go in and change that one up. And then we do our second one. And finally our third one. I can't remember which one. Property, there we go. And hit apply on that. And there you go. So in real time, you can really start to edit these components quite quickly. I'll just do one more down the bottom here. Let's have a look. So funding. Let's change that up. So there you go. You've got 2 different ways of editing the page there. So in almost no time, I wasn't counting, but including interruption by small people, that's probably about 5 minutes in total. And what we've managed to do is create a page and edit the content within the page to look more or less like an actual page that we might want to release out there. So once we've done that, and we've taken that first step, it might be that you're happy with the layout, you like the layout, but as Natalie and her team did, you want to start testing things. Or you want to start rapidly building more pages based on this. So at this point, what we can start to do is we can start to look at Site Studio's helper functionality. And the best way of really describing that is it's almost like an advanced copy paste function. And what that's going to allow you to do is either if you've created a sort of section that you're happy with, you can save that out and reuse it on another page. Or as we're going to do now, you can actually save out the entire page layout itself. So if I just go in and click save, and we're going to call that home page alternative. There we go, into our layout helpers, hit save. That's all you really need to do at this stage. You get a little message telling you you've saved it. And now what we can do is we can go in, we can add a brand new page. Home page alternative. And this time, instead of looking at our components, we're going to go into a section here called helpers. Now, helpers really do speed up your build, because obviously as you start to save out more and more of these, it means you don't have to go in and reinvent the wheel every single time. You can simply drag it in. And what you've got there in front of you now is all of the components that we dragged and previously built on the other page. And if I go hit save, there you go. So if I just refresh that, you can see it looks exactly like the page we've just created. The only difference now is the URL, and that's because they're 2 completely independent pages. So just to prove that, what we're going to do is go in and we are going to change up the messaging here. So whereas previously we've got more of a positioning kind of statement, this time around we might be wanting to test this against perhaps something a little bit more emotive. So let's just change up the image. We can change that up. And we can maybe make it about a particular client or customer instead. And there you go. So you can see again, in no time at all, you've got 2 versions now. It very easily done. So that's how quickly you can start to put out 2 different variants and start testing those. The next thing you might want to do is, and this is 15 below is a perfect example of this. You might have something to say that you need to get out there really, really quickly. And I think, probably over the best part of a year, we've probably all been in that position. So quite quickly, you can use the same methodology just to drag something onto a page. We can go and hit test. Now, obviously we can bake in the usual workflow. Drupal's very, very good at doing that side of it. So, you don't immediately push this live, but you do almost definitely have the tools to do that if you wish. So if we click that now, you can see we've got this rather clashy kind of header at the top there. So again, going in and editing this is really quite straightforward. We're just going to go in. And now one of the other things I'm just going to show you really quickly is how we can help marketers build in styling and functionality, which is basically going to ensure that they don't break the page or the layout. In my experience, I've worked with quite a number of clients over the years where actually part of the thing that stops them going and building pages is this fear of actually breaking layouts, breaking the design, etc. So we can bake that into the component so that doesn't happen. So if we just go into our background color, we'll make it our primary brand color, but you can see we've got a limited number of options really. So there's no opportunity here for anyone to go and add a crazy red background or something like that. We can change the foreground text to dark, and I'm just going to get rid of this kind of silky looking image because I don't think we need that. And then what we're going to do is we are going to paste in, let's make it about COVID, like everything seems to be at the moment. And we can put changes to our policy. And that's probably all I'm going to do for now. I'm just going to hit apply. And there you go. So we've now got this disruptive banner right at the top of the page that no one's going to miss. At this point, you can go back in the CMS if you think perhaps that's a little bit too disruptive to your audience. You can put the hero back where it was. You can save it. The options are there for you to do whatever you really want to do with it. So you can see now we've moved that. Now, there's one other feature that comes out of the box with Site Studio, and it's called component content. I'm just going to quickly show you that. So once you've created that banner, it might be that you really like that banner and you want to use it elsewhere. So in this case, what we can do is if I just go into the component and I come down here, I can save this banner out as component content. So I'm just going to do that now. That saves out. And then I'm going to remove it from the actual page. So there we go. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to go back into component content, and you can see this banner that we've saved out is here now. So I'm going to drag it in, and I'm going to hit save on that. And then I'm going to go back into our other landing page, the variant we created. I'm going to do the same exercise. So I'm going to drag that in and put that there, and I'm going to hit save. Now, if we go and look at both of these pages, what you'll be able to see is we've got banner 1, banner 2. What we need to do now is we go back into our CMS and we go to the actual component content itself. You'll see we've got our full width banner, and it's almost like a global widget. That's the best way I can describe it, really. So we've got urgent COVID update. It might be we need to go changes to your, I don't know, changes to your insurance policy, for example. I've gone too far. Changes to your insurance policy. Once we hit save on that, what that's going to do is it's going to propagate site-wide wherever that banner is being used. So again, we can just click on there, hit refresh, and you can see we've now updated that and do a similar exercise there. And you can use those and save those out as many as you want. So if you've got something that you quickly want to put across pages, you can do that. Site Studio really is all about time saving, if you like. It's about not reinventing the wheel, and it's what it's really good at. The very last thing I'm going to show you guys today is the power of toggling a few things, I guess. So if I just go and open this up here, we've got, a fairly standard looking page, some really nice imagery of things I'd love to have in my life, particularly this vehicle here. But, it's, fairly straightforward. What I'm going to do now is I'm literally just going to probably spend about 30 seconds changing up the page layout with a few settings. So, this could be a case of you've put together the page, you put it in front of someone, they say, it's all right. Coming from my design background, I can tell you at this point, someone will go, it needs a bit more power or pizzazz or, other words that you can't really use in any way as a designer. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to add the power and the pizzazz. So first of all, what we're going to do is, upload an image. And so what I'm going to do here is landing page hero. And we're going to make it really, really big just because we can. And we are going to change the color of the font to light, sit over the top of it. I'm going to hit apply. And that's going to give us this really huge kind of image here, which automatically makes the page feel very, very different. And as we come down, you know, we can make other changes. So it might be we want to make the, you know, like these things don't stand out enough already, but if they didn't, we can, you know, change the color on it and make it primary, hit apply again. And, you know, yeah, pretty big impact, kind of yellow strip now. So you can see with almost no effort at all and no fear of breaking the design in any way, shape or form, we can make simple changes via the user interface that really make your page stand out. So that pretty much concludes my demo for today. Hopefully, you know, that's sort of helped you understand how the 15below website came together in 10 days and how, you know, Natalie and her team are still using it now to kind of be able to test pages, content layouts, etc. at a pretty quick rate. So back across to you, Julian.
Thank you very much, Darren. Thank you. So hopefully that gives you a flavour for what the technology does, and you know, how we were, you know, able to turn something around just so quickly. I think some of the key takeaways that we get from our clients is that as communicators, they want to be able to communicate without technology being a barrier. So it shouldn't be an obstacle in any way. So one of the things I think Darren's just demonstrated there is it's absolutely critical that the complexity is built into the system in a way that makes it less visible to the communication user. So the brand needs to be baked in. The responsive behavior needs to be baked in. Accessibility needs to be baked in, and the user experience principles all need to be baked in, so that really the only thing that you need to be worrying about as a communicator is what is your message and what is the best way to put that across. One other thing to note is that because Drupal is, you know, as I think I said earlier, you know, a very strong piece of technology from an engineering point of view, it acts as an excellent front end to more complex communication estates, where maybe you are publishing from a single source of publishing in the background, and you've got multiple outputs. So you know, Drupal can act as a front end. It takes you know, API feeds in very comfortably from remote sources, and we can feed that through. And Acquia have got technologies like Content Hub, for example, that help run web estates that run on multiple technologies, and then feed and push content through to the correct endpoints. I think the only other thing to mention is that there's a really good roadmap behind it, which makes us really excited as the kind of the implementers of this. So there's a very exciting visual page building experience that's coming soon. We've got translation workflow in there as well, so that you can plug in your translation process into whatever your favorite translation management process, software or backbone is. You know, there's a way of plugging the admin interface into that to manage that, and I know that's a real headache for people who are working on multiple languages to keep that to manage that workflow. And then there's integration into other things like marketing automation, personalization engines, recommendation engines, you know, e-commerce, all of that kind of thing. These are all things that we're actively using this technology for, you know, with you know, across the board now. So from that point of view, it's really exciting. I think that kind of like wraps up you know, the things that we have to say, other than that, you know, we're very much seeing 2021 as the fight back. You know, we're very much seeing this as the bit where you know, the businesses are moving from survival to thriving, and you know, we see this technology as being something that's helping in that. And you know, it's been a great privilege to work with you know, Natalie and the team over at 15below in doing that. So right, I'm just going to hand it over. If we've got any questions, please please go ahead and ask. Okay, I'm assuming what people are doing now is chasing small children out of the room. So I'm going to lead in with one question that we get asked quite a lot, which is there's the design system kind of marketplace is quite a competitive space now, and you've got at one end you've got technologies like Wix, Squarespace that are doing amazing things at one end of the market, and then you've got a very, very powerful software systems like Adobe and AEM and Sitecore that do the same thing. One thing that we found is that for if you're a mid-sized business with a marketing department, and you have a strategic, a lean but strategic marketing department, then for the Squarespaces and the Wixes and the WordPresses of this world will take you so far. But when you then start to get into integrating into more complex marketing technologies, you would then hit a cliff. So that's where Drupal sits really nicely in that mid space. But at the same point, a lot of the work that we're doing now is with clients who are replatforming the other way, who are replatforming from Sitecore, from Episerver, from AEM, because the licensing costs are huge and the speed, the agility they're not seeing there, and at the same time, Drupal is now stepping up to be a part of that, alongside the enterprise support that you get from someone like Acquia. So we've got a couple of questions coming in. So, in fact, Mike has asked, how does this platform differ to Adobe Experience Manager? In terms of capability? Really, really good question. So, Adobe Experience Manager and Acquia CMS are competing head to head in that top right Gartner quadrant now, and they have been now for about 3 years. So there is very, very comparable functionality, enterprise reach in those technologies. And as I said, we're currently rolling out Acquia and Drupal products for multi-site estates for some of the biggest brands on the planet at the moment, which unfortunately I'm under NDA not to talk about. But those things are they are equivalent with any of the biggest AEM builds that I've seen. The one thing that I would say is that the speed to delivery, or the speed to value, I suppose, it's the time that it takes from the point where you make you agree your technology investment to the point at which your technology investment starts to deliver you results is much shorter, using the Drupal Acquia approach. And the reason for that is we can rapidly deploy and prototype and create multi-sites based on parent instances with core brand design systems, which we can then brand up with different identities. So we can do things on scale using those techniques at a price point that I think AEM would really struggle with. Of course, every client is different, and you have to, it's very difficult comparing apples with pears. But we're seeing this as a technology that stretches very comfortably from mid-market through to enterprise. And if you take a look at the Acquia pages, you'll see they've got the Drupal cloud there, but they've also got the marketing cloud there as well. So Acquia have got solutions in CDP, marketing automation, recommendation engines, e-commerce. The full suite is there. So I really see them as an AEM competitor, but I think the reach into the mid-market is much stronger than AEM. That which is my personal point of view. And as I say, I've worked across a number of different accounts, you know, in my career, and you know, I've seen what those big proprietary platforms look like, and I would say the flexibility you get in Drupal is just huge by comparison. Andre has asked another really good question: how much of the CMS is proprietary to Coherence, and how much of it sits on the client end? Right, really good question. So none of this is proprietary to Coherence. So Drupal is obviously an open source platform. It's got 40,000 modules and a huge developer community and voluntary governance structure around that community. So all of that is completely open source. What Site Studio does, Site Studio helps to take the Drupal the theming, which is open source, compile that into reusable design elements, and then pass it back to Drupal to use. So the Site Studio piece is a proprietary service, but it delivers back to an open source endpoint. Andrea, I hope that answers your question. Mike says, are you getting interest from financial services clients? Is there some perceived concern around security? So one of our oldest clients as a business is Close Brothers, FTSE 250 merchant UK merchant bank. We've had them for nearly 10 years now as a client. We are pen tested on a regular basis. We have obviously very strict SLAs in terms of delivering security patching, in terms of ensuring uptime. We also, by the way, work with Winterflood, who run security trading, equity trading software. So again, a very highly sensitive financial services client. So the answer is, Drupal is actually within financial services. We're seeing that Drupal has got a very high level of acceptance now, which maybe 5 years ago may not have been the case, but certainly now it's seen as being very mainstream, especially then if you combine that with Acquia's hosting capabilities. Acquia have got an absolutely rock solid hosting backbone, and that allows us to deploy with very, very high levels of confidence. I hope that answers your question, Mike. Okay, so any other questions? Perfect, thanks. Okay, so I think the only other thing we do get asked is around training. What does it mean for an organization to take ownership of a website like this? We very much as an agency have a pilot, enable and sustain model. So we're very heavily invested in the replatforming phase of the relationship, and then during the enable phase, we help to upskill partner agencies, anybody else on the roster, staff, marketing operations, whoever needs to be involved. We get involved in that. But ultimately, during the sustain phase, we want the level of ownership and the cost of ownership to be relatively low and sustainable for our clients, so that they can reinvest in other stuff. So during the sustain phase, we remain there and we remain present, but we want to make sure that ultimately there's a safety net, or there's the ability to evolve and keep the design system fresh if that's necessary. So unless there are any other questions, one from Richard South. Can you say a little bit about how Coherence work with a client like 15below to create a lead gen campaign around the platform? So Natalie, is that something you'd like to, you'd like to speak to?
Yeah, I can do. I think what is most important to highlight is that what Coherence has done for 15below is given us complete control. So we haven't been working until this year. We hadn't been working with Coherence as a lead gen partner. They were a web development partner, but had a lot of knowledge and expertise around, you know, the strategy of the site and how that should work. But from a lead gen perspective, what Coherence has enabled me to do is to determine what I want my lead gen strategy to be, and then to go off and do it. Whereas before, I was completely, you know, handcuffed by my website. I couldn't, if I had a lead gen campaign that I wanted to run, I just couldn't do it. So the difference now is that I can determine what my objectives are, and the website is completely moldable to enable me to deliver those objectives. Does that answer the question, Julian?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. So I think one of the really nice, you know, the really rewarding things is working with a client like Natalie, is that Natalie is saying, just give me the tools. You know, I just want the tools. Set me free, and I'll go ahead and do it. And you know, I'll be in touch if I need something more. And we kind of work on that basis. And then we have other clients who have got a much higher level of outsourcing of their kind of lead generation strategy. So with those clients, you know, we will work much more heavily on content design, engagement, building engagement strategies, A/B testing those strategies, and following an agile marketing process to test and evolve those strategies. So it's a technology platform, but it's a technology platform which is very much focused on the marketer. And I think we see that as part of the enablement phase. The enablement phase is like, how do you use this? How do you get the most out of it? Because we don't want your technology investment to stop at the day that you know, it's launched. We want to see the ROI building and building and building, you know, as things go on, so you get to do more interesting stuff. And ultimately, you know, I think as many people find who are involved in any kind of web development, you know, a lot of time, effort, you know, resource gets sunk into very repetitive activity, which delivers relatively low return on investment, like theming. You know, there's endless theming in a lot of web projects. So the technologies that we put in place are designed to remove that, so that we can move at speed. And then, you know, the whole panoply of marketing technologies that you'd expect around personalization, analytics, you know, around you know, heat mapping, you know, all of that kind of stuff, we can then just put straight in, and it starts informing us very, very quickly on what types of results that we're getting on the messaging that we're putting in place. So we kind of, you know, as an agency, minded to test and learn. Not everybody works on that basis, and we have some clients that will invest much more heavily in an upfront content design and lead generation piece first, and that's absolutely fine. But we find increasingly clients are, you know, more, you know, happier to dip their toe in and learn from real data in real time, and that's great. You know, that shows agility, business agility, commercial agility, and also the ability to start demonstrating return on investment much sooner in the life cycle of a web project than, you know, maybe we were able to in the past. It's great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I do appreciate you. Oh, yeah, that's it. I think all on the questions. We very much appreciate you giving up your no doubt delayed lunch hour for this. We very much appreciate you spent that time with us. No doubt Midsummer Murders is on somewhere and you could have been watching that, but you chose to spend that time with us. We're truly grateful for that. So thank you very much. Please do reach out to us and ask if you have any further questions. But once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.